Hello everybody, just a quick heads up before we get into the review. This might come out before the other episode review, not saying my name because spoilers, and that's just because I was editing these side by side, so if my delivery on this or editing just seems sloppy or rushed, or at least more than it normally does, then just keep that in mind. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the review. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, the time has come once again for yet another series of Inside Number 9. This time for Series A, we have 5 unique episodes fresh out of the oven, and 5 tales for Steve Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith have weaved in their uniquely comedic and dark way. And seeing as how I did Series 7 last time and The Bones of St. Nicholas, we're going to go through every new episode as I express my thoughts on each one, because if there's one guy you can trust, it's a random person on the internet. So, without further ado, let's dive into Series 8 of Inside Number 9. When it comes down to boiling Inside Number 9 to its bare elements, at the heart of it all are Steve Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith. Not just because they write for every episode and act in nearly every one of them, but because the show itself is built entirely around their performances and wit, which no other show could really pull off. This is a big reason as to why I'm a sucker for what I dub the two-hander episode, where it focuses entirely on Steve and Reece's characters for half an hour, as the two are able to showcase nearly every trick up their sleeve and keep the audience engaged with just the two of them. And almost every time it usually results in a great episode, Bernie Clifton's dressing room, the stakeout, and what we're reviewing today, The Last Weekend. For this episode, we follow Joe and Chaz, who are spending yet another weekend together away from the city inside a comfy cabin up in Scotland. The two men have been together for 9 years now, but despite some hardships and troubles with Joe's health, the two remain together through thick and thin. But this particular weekend may prove to be especially troubling for the two of them, as arguments ensue and strain becomes present in their relationship. After 9 long years, could this be the last weekend in the cabin for the two of them? Now obviously, since this is a two-hander episode, the main draw and selling point is the dynamic between Joe and Chaz, and needless to say, the two characters have absolutely great chemistry between them. Even though they may be a little bit different in terms of their personality, Joe being a more civil and reserved man while Chaz is more flamboyant and outgoing, they really do have a very close connection, which makes it easy for the audience to root for. Not to mention, this episode is going to stand out from the others because it focuses entirely on a relationship, and a same-sex one at that, which shouldn't really be a shock as both Steve and Reece have played such characters in the past, and even in the show itself. Fortunately though, Joe and Chaz's relationship does feel genuine and you can really tell just how close they are.
See? Now breathe. I love you, Joe Madison.
Talking a bit more about them as characters, it is fairly easy to be reminded of certain other characters in the past that the two gents have played. The main pair, of course, being Carl and Stu from literally the first episode of the show, and for those of you who are more experienced with Steve and Reece's older work, they'll no doubt also feel reminded of Charlie and Stella from the League of Gentlemen. But for better or for worse, the two characters that the gents play in this episode certainly do feel grounded and realistic, each having their own insecurities and desires which the other tries desperately to fill, even if it may result in quarrels or feeling dissatisfied. One of them is stuck with an illness they can't be cured of, the other missing the glory days before they even met each other, and the little stray strands of worry between the two. However, if the episode is not focusing on Joe or Chaz, it's mainly focused around what structures it, the 5 stages of grief. Those are of course denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, and throughout the entirety of the episode it pops up frequently in order to ground and anchor the two leads as well as the two nights that they stay inside the cabin. I do really like how the 5 stages are used seemingly sparingly, but once you look deeper and get the full story behind Joe and Chaz, you start to see each of them go through their own 5 stages of grief, whether it be shown or perhaps told to us via exposition of their past. The 5 stages of grief ultimately pulls the audience in order to misdirect them and throw them off from whatever the twist for the episode ends up being. At first it may just be their last weekend together as an item, but when Joe's cancer is revealed, you might think it may be both him and Chaz trying to deal and rationalize with the stages before he dies. Or perhaps it may just be the last weekend because they won't bear to see each other again if their relationship breaks down. Shown to us in this superb scene over a pointless matter, clearly meant to represent anger and where both Steve and Reece's acting chops are shown in full force for the episode.
You're so desperate to win every little argument, I can see.
I'm not desperate to win. I'm just pissed off you're picking a fight with me. I've done nothing wrong.
I'm going to bed.
What's got into you?
Alexa, is it lemonade round the corner chocolate's made?
Don't talk like that.
Alexa, somebody didn't close the fridge door properly.
Well, boo fucking who?
But despite all of the goodwill established at the start and middle of the episode, the final act is where everything all culminates in a rather harrowing and painful manner. Joe eventually reveals that his entire relationship with Chaz was built on nothing more than a lie, and it was in fact a deep-seated plan of revenge after Chaz's hateful comments from the past made Joe's daughter try to kill herself. The cancer and the love were all in fact lies, and the fake affair that is brought up is finally revealed as the person Joe truly loves, leaving Chaz lying in a bath of concrete as he faces punishment for his past actions. And it's here where the episode truly comes full circle with all of its previous themes. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and eventually acceptance are all wrapped up in a neat little bow as Chaz is left to die for the very thing he did most in life, ignoring others mostly for his own personal needs. That isn't to say that Joe obviously isn't entirely innocent as well, but while they may be indirect, Chaz's actions online were quite horrible and really brings to light the impact of online harassment and how grief can cause others to do even the maddest things. As a side note, I really like the constant foreshadowing of the insects throughout, disguising their presence through simple establishing shots and leaving them in the background during the first few minutes of the episode. And I have to say, it is quite cathartic seeing Chaz kill a few ants in the beginning before ultimately they and some other insects kill him at the end. Both Reese and Steve do a phenomenal job acting in the episode, but I really feel like Steve really shines in the last half once we're made aware of his actions, and the caring man we once knew was now morphed into a meticulous cunning figure with not love, but resentment in his heart for Chaz. Obviously the death of his daughter has taken a hold of him, but he's taken the steps of grief in an entirely different way, trying to make Chaz pay, even if it takes 9 years to actually get to the end goal. Steve's entire monologue here in this scene really highlights how much of a brilliant actor he is, switching to a cold, calculating person in the flick of a switch, which really sends chills down my spine, especially once Chaz's punishment, or rather execution, is finally enacted.
Hope you're hungry. You're gonna have to keep your strength up. Do you still want yours heated up? I think I'm gonna have mine cold.
Seeing as how this is the final episode of the series, I think it's fair to say that the two gents have wrapped up things exceptionally with a really great episode. It's full of intrigues, themes, misdirection, and a good relationship which all combines to a great half hour of the show. I know I said before that I didn't want to jinx things, but now that the series is over, and it is over, we're not getting to the best episode, I can definitely say that as a whole unit, the entire series does get better and better as each episode progresses. But if we're talking mainly about the last weekend, then it would be fair to say that Steve and Reese have finished the series on an exceptional note. And as a side note, Blue Jeans Baby is now stuck in my head forever.